All right. Yeah, and so I explained, some of the data gaps that we're trying to address, right? And that's in terms of visualizing the data and building a story behind the metrics. And our reason for choosing WebI was because we had it in place, as I mentioned, right? Now, and so sorry, let me. Yeah, so the key metrics here that they want to look at from Salesforce, if anyone is familiar with Salesforce, it walks you through the flows, kind of walk you through a sale process, right? You start with leads, potential buyers, and they become opportunities, and they become, hopefully in the end you'll get some sales out of that. And so we use the same standard objects in Salesforce to capture that, and so they have that here, and he wants to show the continuation of the metrics or the leads as they kind of flow through the system, um, and in doing that they want to also compare the status of the housing communities, right? And kind of going to the last point here is, where is their money better spent, right? So if you have many leads that convert to many opportunities and to many sales in a certain area, well, you probably don't have to spend a lot of marketing dollars over there. Whereas if your leads are not converting into sales in other areas, you definitely want to put more efforts, over there. And so that's the kind of story that they wanted to see in the dashboard, is to see how the data was flowing as they navigated at a company level, through the regions, through our divisions, and even down to our communities. Right, some marketing efforts are down to the neighborhood level, and so with that aspect as part of the requirements, I definitely thought about drill downs or different slices and perspectives of the data and of the dashboard, right? And that kind of played into the design of the dashboard. And as I mentioned, we chose WebI because it was already in place. We have some good reporting coming out of it. Like I said, a lot of tabular data, but slowly, getting more visualizations in place. But the primary part was that the data was already in place. Right? We already had the Salesforce universe already there. We have data from other systems already in place, and we can join it together either on the backend data warehouse or through the Web reporting engine. And so we could always take advantage of that calculation engine, right, to aggregate automatically at any level, or to merge dimensions across different data sources, right? So we could easily tap into that power behind WebI. And of course, the visualizations out of Web Intelligence are pretty good, right? And I think definitely for a place like ours, we're not taking full advantage of a lot of that, and so even a little bit goes a long way in our environment. And more than anything, for the dashboard here, we wanted to offer something that was truly interactive, right? Because they wanted to shuffle through a lot of data, up from a company level through regions and divisions. Um, and there's no easy way to do that in one screen, right? And so we wanted to offer something that allowed them to kind of question the data as they saw it. And then my last point here is, as I mentioned, if necessary, we're able to bring in data from other sources and place it onto the dashboard. And they would not know any different, right? Whether that data came from Salesforce or from our, JD Edwards data system or anywhere else. So to them, it'll be the count of sales or
Good.
communities or whatever. I'm sorry, what's that? Okay. So in terms of the layout that Runali and I worked on, it was something pretty lean, kind of giving a report a modern look and feel, if you will. And so definitely not overwhelming the user with tons of tables and charts and data, but enough for them to act on something and for them to follow a certain path, right? So the user graphics was important in terms of, color schemes, not too bright, not too dark. Graphics were appropriate, and definitely starting at the summary level, right? And allowing that drill down, like I mentioned, according to what they saw, and allowing the interactivity to be able to navigate to different parts of the dashboard. And we were able to do that through a design cycle that I think we kind of placed for ourselves, MVPs, or minimally viable products, right? And so we started with, out of the 4 metrics, we started with sales, right? So let's figure out how this one metric is going to work, and we'll get all the pieces in place, and that will be the model for everything else. So once we were happy with that model, we went on to metric number 2, and we tested that, we looked at that, and watched out for any potential obstacles with that data set, took care of those, and then went on to metric number 3 and number 4, following the same model, right? And so it was very easy for us to see progress along the way, and to demonstrate progress with every metric that we put in place. So much so that in the end it all worked out very nicely, and we did that through several sessions, not only with the internal team to review the design ideas and requirements, but also with our sponsor, with our business client, who saw kind of the alpha version and loved it, really. And by the time we showed them the final product, like we'll cover at the end, they were very happy. Okay, so should I pause for questions, or should I jump to the demo?
Yeah, I believe we don't have any questions at the moment, so you can go ahead.
All right, let's jump to the demo. All right, so this is the dashboard. Hopefully I've given you a large size here of a canvas to work on here.
Are you able to maximize that window screen by chance?
I can, but it's not going to maximize the numbers.
Oh,
let me see if is that better?
That is much better. Thank you so much.
All right, so this is our marketing dashboard. The 4 metrics that we talked about, they're read, as the most critical, or the money is in the sales, right? So it kind of reads from left to right in that way. But in terms of the flow of the data, it goes right to left, right? So as a potential buyer, you may join an interest list if you're looking to buy a new home, in a certain community. You say, okay, please send me information on this community, or these 2 or these 3 communities. So you may join as a potential buyer any number of interest lists on our website, and you get those marketing emails, right? And so, of course, some people will become a little more serious and say, okay, well, I think I'm gonna click in this next box on the website to say, hey, I'm really interested in this one neighborhood, tell me more. And then if they actually progress to see a sales agent to set up an appointment, let's say, that's when they become an opportunity, right? And that's the object is called in Salesforce as well. And so we track opportunities, and those will lead to sales, right? And so these are not the true numbers, right? But the flow is accurate, right? Where you can have many thousands of people interested in your communities, some a little more serious, a few will seek interviews with sales agents, and then of course you have your home buyers in the end, right? And these next box that you see here, this was an enhancement after the alpha version, that they liked it so much they thought, well, what more can we do? And so they said, well, what if you give us a count of the communities that are active, right? So of the 50,000 people that are interested in our communities, that comprises that's made up of 567 active communities. and 86 communities are coming soon. And then the QMI are the quick move-ins, are quick sale homes, right? So 383 communities have quick sales available, for these folks that are interested. And so same thing, going down the line, you see the number of communities, active or coming soon change according to the data. And that was on their request after seeing the first version. But what we showed them with that alpha version was that, okay, we start with the 4 metrics and we break that down by region, right? So what do your numbers look like for each metric for each region? And when you want to question the data, you click on it, right? Let's look at our sales, right? And let me make this a little bit bigger as well. Okay, so for sales, we have the same regional breakdowns that we saw earlier, but now we can see within each region, we see the divisions, right? And we see the numbers for those divisions, the communities, line up as well, but you start to drill down into the data, right? And if you're looking at the tabs down below, there's the magic curtain that you're looking behind, right? But to the end user, they're clicking on tabs on the dashboard, and that was part of the thing that we wanted to demonstrate also, is that you can stay on as much as possible. There are some obstacles, but as much as possible, you can stay on the canvas. Drill down to your metric, and drill back up to company level. You can drill down to a region. Right, let's look at region, and we wanted to highlight what region they were looking at. So Rinaldi came up with this, with this cool little, home icon, to match our Meritage homes, and so they can see that they're looking at Texas, or they're looking at West Coast or South or Florida, whatever it might be. And what we're showing here, they wanted to drill down to actual communities, right? So we're showing, because of space limitations, we're showing the top 20 communities, in that West region. But when they click on a division, that changes to the top 20 for that division, right? And so they can, keep clicking on these numbers to get the different divisions and the different communities. And I apologize for scrolling down here. And the final piece of this is to drill down to the granular data, right? So if you start at a community level, let's say in Texas, you have this one link to see all the communities and all these metrics for Texas. Or if you dial into a division, you get an additional link to see the communities for that division, right? And when you click on it, they take you to a different report tab, right? And so these are the communities in all of Texas. You can see Austin at the top, followed by Dallas Fort Worth. In the end, you'll end up in San Antonio, right? But if you had clicked on the divisional one, you would get only for Houston, right? So that's what we offer. That's where they started, and so that's where they end up. And this is kind of the one place where they have to go back and use the tabs to say, okay, take me back to sales where I was, or take me back to company if I want to start a different path. Right, but that's the kind of the interactivity that we want to work in through the dashboard, is to keep them on the canvas, but also in the end have that granular data available, right? So I think that's all I've prepared for the demo. Any questions? Okay.
Hey Luis, that's
Yes.
really cool. I can see why they like it so much, because it's so simple and easy to use. One of the things you spoke about when you did your initial presentation is one of the key things they wanted to get out of this was, where should they be spending their marketing dollars? So how does the dashboard help them to get to that point?
Yeah, that's when they start to, good question. That's when they start to analyze, and one other enhancement that they ask for example, is a ratio between one metric and the other, right? So at this company level, what's a ratio of 35,000 to 50,000 and 13,000 to 35,000 and things like that. And so we'll have to make a little bit space here to do that. But right now they're doing that kind of in their heads to say, okay, well, these at a company level, I guess it's average, it's kind of expected, right? But when they start to look at a certain division, let's say, and they get to let's see, where am I going? Oh, sorry, hold on, I'm in a bad place. Yeah, and they get to division, right? They'll go to actually the detailed view, right? And through here, they'll get the breakdown, the same metrics, and we'll put in the same ratios here for interest list and leads, right? So they can see, for a certain division, we have, of course, in WebI, we have our subtotals, right, for each division. But then for each community, they're able to see, what's happening at each community, right? And so let's take this one, Highlands North, where we have some numbers here. And again, these are a little bit faulty numbers, so I apologize if some of them don't make sense, but it's kind of a demo data. But if we started with 178 interest lists joins, and we only have 88 leads, if that ratio is good for this division, then okay, then that's our average, right? Compared to maybe Morningstar Americana here, where they get 38 leads out of 136 interest list joins, right? So that's where you want to spend your focus on a place like this to say, okay, well, that's whatever I'm doing currently, it's not enough. It's not giving me the same ratios as these other communities up above.
Right. So, for example, I see what you're saying. So, if they decided in one community to for one particular community to run a social media campaign for a month, or to have human signs for a month, and then they could look at the numbers and see, okay, did that make a difference or not? And things like that. I get it. That's good. One question came in. It might be for Ronali. It was, how many different queries does the dashboard have?
Yeah.
About 8, I think.
About 8?
Yeah.
Yeah, and the reason behind that was primarily to isolate the metrics, possibly. I don't remember. Ronali could maybe speak to that. But the other one was to isolate the status of the communities, right? Because we wanted to make sure that whatever status numbers we were showing here, they corresponded directly to the interest list joins, right? And so, it's not the same data set, or if we tried to get all that data in one fell swoop, it would give us a different story, maybe a misleading story, right? So we wanted to make sure that these community counts were only for interest list joins, and that's a single object in Salesforce, right? And so with that regard to the leads, but when we got to leads, what are the communities there for those leads with that regard to from where they came or to where they're going, right? So that's part of the reason for the number of queries, but they're all from a single universe. They're all from our Salesforce universe.
That's cool. Excellent. I think there was that was it for now. So if Ronali wants to show a little bit of how it was done, that would be great. Thanks so much, Luis.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Luis. Yeah, Luis, I think we will need to stop sharing for me to.
Okay. I stopped.
Zoom setting. Okay. All right. So let me go into the details of some of the WebI techniques I have used and approach. It was whenever I build something that's going to act like a dashboard, I make sure I set the layout from the very beginning. I set it to page mode during my development instead of the quick display mode, so that I always have things within my margin. I set a margin of approximately, I think, 1/4 inches on each side, to give this a nice space around. And then I set the scale all right. And then usually for dashboards, I set it to landscape. But again, depending on the nature of the report, it can be portrait as well. For this particular one, I took the model approach, and Louis talked to that a little bit, that we started with the summary, the company tab, and then built one of the metrics, and then use that technique to recreate the other one. But I say with caution, because we have to be careful. I had to be careful about the scope of variables and objects, because even though they are separate tabs, based on their scope within the document, it might get a little trickier. I reached out to a graphic expert within Infosol who helped me with some of the graphics. That was very nice addition to the dashboard. And I made sure that the colors are consistent from the company page to the detail page, so that each metric, color for each metric are kind of consistent throughout the document. Now let me get into the details of the techniques. So I used a very high level overview is I used vertical tables in a lot of places to set the background in a way that it looks like tiles. I of course used element linking for the interactivity, and the hide when feature. So the conditional hiding of objects was one of the key techniques used. And I heavily used the reference cell, and I'll show you why and how. And then intra-document linking, which again, WebI has started offering in some service packs of 4.2. And that turned out to be very useful for this dashboard. And you saw how Louis showed you can navigate from one tab to another while filtering. But intra-document linking, the built-in intra-document link feature does not allow prompt. So I used a walkaround with a variable to actually make it work like filtering when you're going to another tab. And then I had some good use of merge dimensions and cross tab, even though you won't see a table which looks like a pure cross tab. So I'm gonna go to the actual report. I'm showing the report. Lucy, can you confirm if you can see the report, or do you still see the slide?
Yeah, we can see that different screen that you selected.
Okay, perfect. So one thing is this, the selector at the very top, where you click on any of these numbers and it takes you to the corresponding tabs. It's actually a vertical table, but the way I set this up and formatted, that it looks like 4 different tiles. But since it's a table, each column is an individual kind of cell, and I used each one to set up the intra-document linking. And then I set the background to the graphic I used. And then I set up titles separately so that they line up nicely. And the numbers are basically tiles, so that so I have like 3 objects set up in a way that they look really nice and aligned. The numbers do not overlay on the picture, but also clickable on its own. And then, so as I'm clicking here, you can see, I'll quickly show you the setup here. So from that table, I have intra-document linking set up to the sales tab with our tooltip. And in the sales tab, this is where I have a vertical, sorry, not a vertical table, it's a column chart, which shows the different values of region. This is by region. And then over here, I have element linking set up to filter the charts by region. So, but I'm not only filtering the chart, I'm also filtering a reference table which let me show you here. So but I'm hiding that completely. It works in the background. And let me pull this up. And this cell, I have set a reference on this cell, which then I'm using for setting up all the logics. So the way it helps is I have like kind of think of it, you can think of that as a specific cell in spreadsheet that I can refer to and use for setting up my logic to filter the rest of the things. And this little nice graphic is basically again set up on, it's a cell, but it's set up with conditional hiding. So depending on what value I'm selecting, it will show up in the correct position. And the last one I'll say is the workaround, the parameter passing for inter-document linking. So what happens here, this is another table, even though it looks like a cell, it's a table. And when I click on this, traditionally with inter-document linking, you'll not be able to pass a parameter. But what I have done here is, again, making use of the references, I have set up flags. So one of the flags, for example, is again referring to the reference cell and see whether the value is equal to that or not, and then setting up an yes and no. And then internally, even before I click on this, it's filtering, but the inter-document linking takes you there while it's already filtered on the data. Or if you're filtering on division, it filters on the division as well. So there are, so the table actually is using those flags to filter the data appropriately. So, and there are like and all logics based on what I'm trying to do here. And these tables that you see here, we wanted to make them look consistent. You can see that I have 0 for some of the status, but what was happening originally was it was either showing me 3 columns or 4 columns or only 2 columns if one of them did not have a value. So I set up another query just to bring in all the status. Let me show you that. So I have just one object there, which brings all the status, and then I'm merging that with the actual data, the status from the actual data query, and then set it up as a cross-step so that even if I don't have a value for grand opening, I can still show this, and it always shows those 5 status, and it looks consistent across the page. So those are the techniques I used, and we'll quickly go over the challenges we faced. One was obviously no prompt capability for the inter-document linking. One that we have seen, we are still facing that no reset button on the canvas. What we want to avoid is the need for users to go to the input control panel to reset the filters that they set up. See? So one way of resetting, when I want to clear the filter that I have on West, either I have to go and reset from these individual filters or a complete reset, or I have to do it from here. And none of these are the most intuitive to users. So we have been trying to kind of find a workaround so that they can do this clearing of the filter from the canvas itself. And one of the technical challenges that I faced, but we found workaround using the reference cell was, you can see from here that I can either filter from the top chart on West or Texas, but even without clicking on any one of them, I can start the filtering process right from these charts that are by division. So if I filter by Phoenix, it still shows me that that's a division under the West region. That's what I have selected, and it filters the community chart with the division I selected. So it's not that I always have to start with the region. I can directly start from this. So that was one of the complex things to set up, but using relative positioning and all the logics and the reference cells, I was able to accomplish that. And I think those are the key techniques that I used. I'm open for any questions. And I think we had wanted to give a quick glance on the feedback we received, but I think Louis talked about that. So I think we can go on to any other questions we have.
Thank you, Renali. That was really awesome. Very nice use there of the reference cell.
Yes.
I would never have thought of that. That's really cool. There are no questions at this time. We did get a comment saying amazing presentation. Thank you both Luis and Renali. So that was excellent. So let me hand over to Lucy. Over to you, Lucy.